Pac-12 Panic Room plus BYU plus USU plus Weber, JP Chunga, Mitch Harper, inside the Panic Room where our rent is not $4.9 million like the Pac-12 down there in San Francisco. That's the talk of the town, at least in Pac-12 circles right now. The Oregonian articles that have been released by John Canzano, the bald-faced truth. This, not a good look for Larry Scott as he came on Gunther and Ben yesterday.
No, not a good look at all, JP. And the thing is, too, is it's even getting more kind of like personal, it feels like, where the Pac-12 is now issuing copyright laws on Canzano and his videos that he's obtaining. It's kind of an ugly situation for the Pac-12. It just doesn't look good for a conference that clearly has been lagging behind. They're heading into championship weekend, and we'll go in depth about that game coming up here. But this is a conference that is not in the thought process of the college football playoff. We're talking about maybe an AAC team might get into the playoff, maybe, a long shot. But the Pac-12 not even in the thought process. So that's where the conference has been, and it's really fallen behind. And John Canzano, who's got great connections, great sources, he's sourced it really well. You got to wonder if Larry Scott's in the Pac-12 network is regretting letting him tour the facilities. But he's gotten some great pieces so far, and he's really kind of shed more negative light on Larry Scott, who hasn't been well liked the past year or so in the conference.
In a week where your championship game is on a day where no other championship game's on, where all the eyeballs will be fixed on, you have this story come out. You have the incompetence of your conference being the top story that everybody's going to be talking about in college football.
And think about college basketball media day for the Pac-12.
Yep.
That who was it? Pete Thamel had his report on the officiating scandal. So whenever there's an opportunity for the conference to showcase its brand, its conference, everything about it, these really hit pieces are on the conference are being dropped, and they're taking away from the field of play. So it's not a good look for the conference at all. But I think, Larry Scott, it does raise a lot of questions. Why is he getting these big salaries compared to the likes of Greg Sankey, Jim Delaney, the real power brokers in college football, the guys that are going to move the needle when the next round of conference expansion happens? Why is Larry Scott getting that much salary? I know, San Francisco is an expensive place to live, but man, that just seems a bit extreme with the cost, the salary that he's getting, and the loans too. The $1.8 million loan that he hasn't paid off yet, and he got a great big spacious home. Just raises a lot of questions about his leadership and what he's in it for.
Well, and I look at it the same way that you look at the NFL with Roger Goodell. Everybody doesn't like Roger Goodell, but there's a reason why he's still in charge, to take all these arrows, to take all the criticism and everything that everybody is saying about him. It appears Larry Scott is doing the same for this Pac-12 conference, as Canzano outlaid in his first piece. The Pac-12 CEO group of Michael Crow at ASU, Dr. Ray at OSU up there in Oregon State, and then the UCLA president, who are the really power brokers of the entire conference that are installing Larry Scott and enabling him to make all these decisions.
Yeah, and they seem to like him. They seem to still be on board with Larry Scott. And you know what? He came in, and Ute fans loved him at first.
Yeah.
Obviously, Utah got into the Pac-12 because, he reached out and negotiated the deal with Chris Hill and Utah at the time. So they loved him at the time. But now, as things have went by, and once that press conference was done on Capitol Hill, there really hasn't been much positives from Larry Scott for Utah or the Pac-12 conference. And it's really shown itself as the conference has fallen behind its peers. At one point, we thought the Big 12, in kind of we look big picture in college football, say maybe they get to 4 conferences, these 4 super conferences, or which conference is on the least stable footing. We all thought the Big 12. After a few years now, with the Big 12 now having a championship game as well, I don't think the Big 12 is the one on least stable footing. I think it's the Pac-12. I mean, you got to wonder if some of the members in the conference, are wondering about other options. What does USC think of all this, having to share equally the revenue with the likes of Utah and Colorado? And what does Arizona and Arizona State think? Geographically speaking, they're kind of close to the Big 12. You just kind of wonder where the future of the conference is, because I think a lot within some of the other presidents and athletic directors are not too thrilled with what Larry Scott's doing.
Well, let's talk on that USC tire fire that's happening right now. We were going to get to it after we talked about the championship game, but I'm teasing you a little bit more. USC decides Clay Helton can stay, but all his friends have to go. T. Martin, Clancy Pendergast, everybody's gone. But Clay Helton's still there in charge at USC.
Yeah, it's the purge. It's the purge at USC, and no one was safe except Clay Helton. And you got to think, I mean, you let go of the whole staff, but yet the guy at the top of it all stays. It just seems very strange. Lynn Swann seems very enamored with Clay Helton, the man, rather than you can't separate the man and the football coach. That's the issue here. And I think also, does USC have as much money as we think? I mean, it seems like the buyout for Clay Helton, it seems pretty expensive. Now, they're a private institution, so we don't see the exact numbers, but you just have to wonder if they really have the money to do like what teams in the SEC can do and just buy out a coach. I mean, there's rumblings down in the SEC where they want to buy out Gus Malzahn and pay the huge amount of money. I don't think that'll happen, but USC maybe don't have as much power as what we see out in the Southeast. So Clay Helton comes back for one more year, and if you're everyone else in the Pac-12 conference, especially here locally at Utah, you got to love that because, I mean, we all know this isn't going to end well with Clay Helton. Yeah, you can try and go get Cliff Kingsbury, but it's ultimately not going to end well. You're going to, get maybe 7-8 wins next year? I don't see much changing with Clay Helton at the helm, even with a new staff.
Look at any message board for USC. It is not going well over there. You think Utah Twitter's a dark place?
Yeah.
Look at USC message boards right now. Nobody is in favor of this move.
At the Coliseum, they had a crowd of 47,000 for some games. I mean, 47,000. That was in attendance down south at BYU. People were going, man, that's the lowest attended game since 35 years, and that's happening at the Coliseum in a heavily populated community with 90,000 seat stadium. That's unreal to think that the attendance is dipping that much. People are not supporting Helton, and I just think that negative vibe around the program from the fans, the boosters, I just don't think it's going to work out well for USC. They can try and think that this is going to change suddenly, but I just don't see it happening, especially when they're changing the entire staff. I mean, if you really believe Lynn Swann and Clay Helton and his vision, why not keep the current staff in place then? I mean, why does it all of a sudden have to overhaul the entire staff? You're starting anew. Why not just get rid of the head man?
And if you're a coach trying to come in to rebuild that staff, why would you come in with a lame duck head coach?
Yep.
There's no reason for you to go down with a sinking ship if you're signing up for that at USC. You know things aren't going to go well. The big cheer was not from USC fans. It was from everybody else in the Pac-12 South. And that has to look good for the likes of Utah and ASU and Arizona and Colorado. Even UCLA, the crosstown rival, which beat them in the rivalry game.
Well, and that's the thing, too, with UCLA. I think there's a lot of paranoia about Chip Kelly. And I get it. Chip Kelly's he's gonna do some good things at UCLA, but they were, a 3-win team this year. I mean, you can't get too worked up about what UCLA's doing. It's going to take a lot longer at UCLA for Chip Kelly than maybe anyone thought. So USC maybe having a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, having to overhaul the staff because of Chip Kelly. And I think you make a good point, too, about the offense coordinator. How legitimately, or can you legitimately get a good offensive coordinator when there's not going to be job security? Unless they guarantee that OC, like a Cliff Kingsbury, you're going to get a 4-year guaranteed contract. Yeah. Well, then he's going to get paid out, and maybe then he takes it, even though he knows that his head man will probably be gone. But I just think they're going to have to get some up-and-comer who wants the shot to be at USC and work alongside a coach that might only have 1 year left.
They'll have to figure that out, but everything's figured out in the Pac-12 championship game as we look at this game concerning Utah and Washington, a rematch of a Week 3 affair where Washington came into Rice-Eccles Stadium, beat them 21-7. I look at this game, and I see a very different squad that Utah's bringing out, and offensively specifically, that they're coming into this championship game coming up on Friday.
I think these are the two best teams. I really do. I kind of felt that, with Washington State in Washington, I didn't trust Washington State against the Huskies. I just didn't. And that played itself out in Pullman as Chris Peterson once again knocked out Mike Leach. I think these are the two best teams. Even Cody Barton, back after that game against Washington when Utah lost 21-7, he said at the podium to the media, he said, I think once we win the South, we'll play these guys again. I mean, that was a very confident statement at that time because Utah had lost their first conference game, and he was really confident, and it became prophetic because it's happening now, and I think this is a good matchup. It's unfortunate, though, that it's in a Friday setting where it's not going to get as much exposure as the Saturday games, but still, that's the conference. That's where Fox is saying, we don't value you as much as the Big Ten, who's going to get prime time the following day on Saturday night, but still get your own window, make the most of it. And I think for Utah, I think Armand Shine and Jason Shelley, continue to check off all the boxes. I mean, every time you think that they're going to have a setback, they keep answering the bell and keep performing well. And this continues to be a team that just just a regular team, but they continue to not be, and they're knocking on the door of a championship.
And look at this, just playing for UW's perspective. This is the best defense that Utah's going to be playing since playing UW, honestly, because you look at the defense that were representative of the Pac-12, they weren't that great, and the Pac-12 South wasn't that great. And now you're going to be able to show yourself against a really good team in Washington. I guess you can make the argument is a couple plays from being undefeated. If they don't do that option against Auburn, if you don't throw that pick six against Cal, you're back into that game. Washington's very good, and I can really see how they can bottle up this Utah offense just like they did in Week 3, where Utah only had one drive longer than 42 yards.
Yeah, that was a suffocating performance back in September. I mean, and Britton Covey, I remember, I didn't think he was going to come out alive in that game. I mean, he was getting hit left and right. This Washington offense isn't as good as where they were 2 years ago when they made the playoff. And the stats bear that out. They're like averaging 14 points per game less than what they did 2 years ago. So, and that's kind of strange to see that when you have a quarterback, the same quarterback in Jake Browning, but still.
Turning around, Jake Browning.
It's 3rd and 13, Steve. There is no chance of this play working. Now he's back in the pocket, and he's going to get hit, and he just throws it up. That's the worst possible thing you can do in that position. And Peter Tonga is lucky that ball didn't go out of the end zone.
They got playmakers with Browning still and Myles Gaskin, Ben Burr-Kirven at linebacker. I really like this Washington team a lot. This is going to be a tall order for Utah. Yep. And I think really this is a game too. If Utah, not only they have a shot to win the title, but I think it also could be, you're talking about maybe you're winning over your quarterback here for the future. I mean, if Jason Shelley wins this game, he's your quarterback of the future, man. It's hard, and it's interesting that Kyle Whittingham dangled the carrot that Tyler Huntley could be back for a bowl game.
Oh, a big chance, yeah. He's like I said, he's getting very close, and so depending on the timing of the bowl, there's a strong possibility that he'll be ready.
Jason Shelley wins this, you got to play Jason Shelley in whatever bowl game it is. If they do win, it's the Rose Bowl, so you got to keep playing him. So this is a huge opportunity for Shelley and this Utah program to really become more of a national brand. That's one of the goals that they had when they came into the Pac-12 conference, was to break away from just being a regional program and be more of a national presence. This is their first legitimate chance to do that as a member of the Pac-12.
Tyler Huntley's best win, USC or Stanford?
Yeah.
If Jason Shelley beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship game, he goes into the lore. He's in the likes, frankly, of the great Utah quarterbacks that have played right now, because he was able to do it as a backup in a year where you lost the dearly departed Jack Tuttle and others, Zach Moss included. That would be what a tremendous job by Jason Shelley of this offensive staff and Troy Taylor and Kyle Whittingham to get the job done.
Proud of our guys and how they've just continued to persevere and fight this season and overcame so many obstacles and so much adversity. And, it's just a great group to be around, and one of my most enjoyable years as coaching, was this year and being able to work with these guys.
It will all be decided on the field Friday. What are you expecting?
I'm expecting a low-scoring game, though.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be low-scoring, and I think that Washington, the trends, the wise guys, it's going in favor of the Huskies. What is it? Latest is 5.5 in favor of the Huskies. I think Utah covers, but I think Washington wins by a field goal. I'm going to say 21-18. Washington wins, and Utah just barely comes up short in this one.
That sounds about right. I think 1st-20 wins this game in Utah and Washington, because two power defenses in the Pac-12. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be able to get the coverage next week after Selection Sunday of the college football playoff rankings, and all the bowls will be announced. We will have you covered here in the Pac-12 Panic Room, plus BYU, plus USU, plus Weber, analyzing where BYU's going, how Weber State's doing in the FCS playoffs, and more, along with Utah State as well. For Mitch Harper, I'm JP Chunga. Until next time, bye for now.